Welcome everyone, and thanks very much for joining us for our panel discussion. This is the first panel discussion of the IPI World Congress, which we launched today. And the title for this session is Digital Transition. The future has already happened. And we came to that title because, as you may remember, back in what now seems like quite a distant past, William Gibson famously told us that the future has already happened. It's just that it's not evenly distributed. And I guess that's a way of thinking that forces all news media organisations to be continually asking themselves, are we there yet? So settle in. In this session, we're going to get some insights and ideas from three people who have been sailing the high seas through the storms of disruption into a somewhat safe harbour of the future. And I'm delighted that we have with us today newsroom leaders who have a lot of experience to share with you. So from Norway, we have Espen Egil Hansen, who is most recently the former Director of New Media Concepts for Schibsted, but also until quite recently, was the CEO and the Editor-in-Chief of Aftenposten. From Germany, we have the Süddeutsche Zeitung Editor-in-Chief Wolfgang Krach. And from South Africa, we have Ferial Haffajee, who's the Associate Editor of Daily Maverick, and also in her career has been Editor-in-Chief of Mail and Guardian and the City Press. So together we're going to be talking about journalism, business models and products and how they mesh together to create the future. And Espen, I thought if I can start with you, we're talking about how we manage the transition from print to digital or to multi-platform. And one of the really impressive things that that Aftenposten has achieved, I guess, is how you've managed that crossover in revenues from advertising to subscription, and where you're now at, I think it's 80% subscriber revenue. And I guess what would be great to know is what's the most valuable takeaway, and about how you did that.
Thank you, Jacqui. Well, so you are right. We did a deep transformation from mainly advertising, 80%, to mainly subscription in a few years, actually. Didn't take that long time. And I think it's easy to view that as mainly a business model transformation, but in fact, it's a deep transformation of everything from work culture, how you operate the newsroom, the discussion in the newsroom, how newsroom and the commercial side work together, and so on. So it actually affects all sides of the business and everyone's working there.
Is there one kind of one sort of, big thing you would say was the aha moment?
Yeah, I would say the big aha is that digital subscription actually is a better alignment when it comes to business model with journalism. So it's better aligned, because actually you get a closer relationship to your audience. What you sell or what people pay for is actually the journalism and the service we do. So in a mainly advertising model, it's kind of sport advertising messages, and there will always be this friction between the newsroom and the advertising operation. But when it comes to subscription, the actual main customer is the subscriber, the reader. So the aha moment for me was that this was actually pretty popular in the newsroom, and people got excited And very rapidly, we became creative. It became something positive drive for journalism.
So would you say, is it a jump also from being, a jump to being more of a user experience company?
Yeah, of course. So you know, we have to admit that our tradition as news media, we like to think that we know our audience and that we are audience oriented, but we are not. Let's admit that. So we have been fine talking to people, but when you come to digital subscription, obviously this relationship is built on much more of dialogue, better understanding. This doesn't mean that you just write more about what people want, but the basics there. For example, if no one reads your articles, you know, they're not going to pay for it. The good news here is, of course, that the expectations to a quality brand, it is much more aligned with what our ambitions as a newsroom. So there is an expectation for investigative journalism, for what we like to call quality journalism, and so on. So again, I think there's a better alignment.
Yeah, and Wolfgang, so I think it's widely accepted now that the future really depends on reader revenues. And, you know, as Espen says, it's not just because of the money, but also because I guess it ties what we do much more closely to our audience. And, you know, my own research, I know that, you know, subscriptions and readership gets a real boost off great journalism. And your paper was at the centre of one of the stories for a few years, the Panama Papers. What impact did that have on your audience and subscriptions and growth? And was there a business strategy or a business outcome from that?
Let me just make two opening remarks, because you said in the beginning that we are three media organizations that have reached a safe harbor. I'm not sure whether we have.
Somewhat, I said.
We are on a good way, I would say, but I'm not sure whether we have reached the safe harbor. The second point is what Espen also said a bit. All the transitions we did in recent years, we didn't do them because we liked to do them. We did do them because we were forced to do them, because of the economic situation and the completely change of the reader's behavior. The only thing, or the basic thing we did at Süddeutsche Zeitung, the journalistic decision we made was about 15 years ago, when we were thinking about the question, how do we differentiate from others? Why do people read Süddeutsche Zeitung in Germany? And we made the decision to invest into investigative journalism. And we created a new unit of investigative reporters. And we did that despite all the restrictions we had with money, with budget. This was the only unit we established as a new one in the newsroom. And we said, okay, that's the one thing, the crucial thing we want to do as Süddeutsche Zeitung. And it was a hard work that we had been doing for several years. And the first lighthouse project, internationally seen, was the Panama Papers in 2016, when we had this, and it was a very, very hard work to go there and to reach that point. And of course, we also, it's always a bit by incident that you find somebody, a source who gives you something and so on. But it was a journalistic decision to say, we want to invest in journalism and investigative journalism, and that is the one thing that differs us from others. And of course, when we published the Panama Papers, and Espen's paper was in the team, the Aftenposten. We saw how dynamic the echo was, and we saw, of course, the impact to the whole newsroom here at Süddeutsche Zeitung, and this really completely changed the attitude of many of the colleagues here in the newsroom, and it gave us a clear focus of what we want to do and what we have to do.
Okay, and so you see that, I mean, does that connect to the business? Like, I mean, is it driven from the business side as well in terms of that investment? Yeah.
The basic investment was not driven from the business side, because it was at a time when the newspaper was still in a good economic shape.
Right.
It was a journalistic decision, but of course, when we started it, we built a new team, and we invested in this team also in the times where we had budget restrictions and budget reductions, and we said, okay, we want to build up this team and strengthen the investigative reporting. This was a decision we did from a journalistic point of view.
Yeah, but I mean, I asked because Mark Thompson, who will actually be up next, I heard him say in an interview a couple of weeks ago that, you know, I mean, that's one of the things that the New York Times did that many others didn't, is that actually they invested in their journalism, and he saw that as one of the, you know, one of the important things. So, Ferial, you've gone quite a different route, haven't you, with the membership model with Daily Maverick. I wonder if you can, you know, take us through that model and sort of practically, how did you get there with it?
Thank you very much, Jacqui, and lovely to be with you all. Although I have to say, after 7 months of lockdown, I really would have liked it if we were in Vienna. So our story is a little bit like Wolfgang's. The Daily Maverick has never had a legacy print product. It's always been an online news site. But when membership developed was when we also had a big tranche of leaks related to a very corrupt family called the Guptas in South Africa. And then from there, it came to the Daily Maverick because trust in it was so high, and its networks were so good. That really shifted the trajectory of our country, which, sad to say, was on its way to becoming like a regular basket case banana republic. But because of those leaks, it caused a seismic political shift. And that also saw trust in investigative journalism growing substantially enough for the Maverick to grow a membership base who pay anything from like 10 Rand to huge amounts of money to support the work. And from that, the team has developed a three-legged pot of revenue, which comes from your membership, from philanthropy, and then from advertising. And that three-legged strategy really seems to be one that offers some way forward. It's given me a new impetus after many years in print, where I always felt like I was on the edge of an existential cliff about to fall off, and suddenly there's hope. And it's also more, for me, a democratic ownership system, because I feel like my accountability is way different to what it used to be, less to the market and more to these members who we're just starting to experiment with how they can actually help us to do stories, help us with our investigations, in the same way I've seen at Espen and Wolfgang's titles, where they become literally like co-producers of your journalism, and I'm pretty excited about what that kind of future holds. And then just quickly, it's been really lovely to see during COVID-19 how we have been able to draw on those members, some of whom were epidemiologists, psychologists, specialists, to inform our journalism, which really took on new forms, because we would hold live journalism, which is like webinars, where you'd easily get up to 2,000 people attending, just because of the extent of public curiosity and the deep thirst for knowledge. So it's been a real growth moment for us, and very good to report that to you, right? To be able to report such a thing to you.
Yeah, and so Ferial, can you just tell us, how does it practically work, like the relationship with the audience? How do they engage in the journalism and, you know, as you say, become co-producers? What are the
so there's a very good, a tiny but excellent back office. Fran Brayton heads our membership group, and you keep in touch with them all the time. So there's a full-time team who are really just in place to deal with the members, to deal with their questions, their concerns, to make sure they're constantly in touch, to link them up with the journalists. And so what we've been doing, because I'm also the engagement editor, is you scope what you think are going to be projects where they can co-create with you, and we're just beginning to do that. And that's very much like the Correspondent and other new examples we're seeing, where people very much are part of the making of your journalism. So they're deeply embedded part of the community, not just people who give you money. And I find that a very new model, and certainly one that speaks to my heart, because it's close to democratic concepts of what I think journalism should be.
And Wolfgang, can you talk a bit about, like, what is do you have a similar relationship with your audience, or around the investigations unit, for example?
We don't have a membership model.
No.
I would say, as Espen said in the very beginning, that the relation to our readers changed dramatically and has changed dramatically in recent years, because the connection to them is much closer and more intensive than it had been before. This is, of course, through all the social media channels we have, and this is also, we see that the strategic change from a business model that is financed by advertising revenue. We were in the same situation 15 years ago, that 75% of our revenues came from the advertising, and at the moment we are at 25%, and 75% is from distribution sales. And this, of course, changed the attitude to our readers and the users, because we are listening more and more intensive to their to what they want, to what they expect from us, and we didn't listen like that 15 years ago. And this, of course, intensified the relation. And we also see that with the digital readers and the digital subscriptions we have, the relation is much closer than in general to the readers of the printed newspaper.
Mm-hmm. And so is your business model now, did you say it's 25% advertising, 75% subscriptions?
Yes.
Yes.
And we did a dramatic change last year. The first one was a few years ago to change from advertising revenues to distribution sales, and now it's the shift we did last year was from print to digital subscribers. And so the strategic aim we have is to win digital subscribers. And for example, 1 year ago we had the circulation of the newspaper is about 230,000 of the printed paper, and we changed. We had about 80,000 digital subscribers 1 year ago, and now we have more than 150,000 within 1 year. And all these subscriptions are paid subscriptions, no test subscribers.
So how did you get that jump?
I think it was a mixture between Corona helped us a lot, I would say, that we saw in March, we had the really dramatic shift started in March, when people were interested in reading the website, and we attract the people to the website and then to the digital subscriptions, because we have a model that you can only read a little of our stories without paying. And that was a dramatic shift from March to now. We won more than 50,000 digital subscribers, and this is the Corona bonus, I would say. It's not only. I think we can't. This will not occur again in the next 6 months, I would say. And the other thing is that we dramatically are changing the structure and all the things we are doing in the newsroom, and we are really oriented in how to publish digitally first. And this is we haven't finished this process. We are in the middle, but I think this was the precondition for this success.
Yeah. So what would you say then is the sort of primary Süddeutsche Zeitung journalism product?
It's still from the revenues, and I would also say from the mindset of most of the people in the newsroom. It's still the print paper, but it's changing very fast to the digital edition. And we have a website, we have a print paper, and we have a digital edition. That's a kind of it's a closed product that is similar to the newspaper, and it's updated just once a day. And this is the third product we have, and I think we are just in the change, in the transit from the orientation to the print product to the digital one.
Okay. Espen, can I ask you, first of all, just staying on kind of like, audience and subscribers, what can you share that you've learned about reaching younger audiences? And also, what are some of the tools and products that you use to build, I guess, a closer relationship and, more solid news habits with your audience?
Sure. So we learned a lot of things. And I actually think Wolfgang touched on the most important point. If you want to reach a younger audience, you have to do it by quality in the digital. So what does that mean? So lifting an article from print to digital, it's not going to do the job, because you can reach higher quality by asking, how can we tell this story the most effective? So there are more tools of storytelling. There is better ways to communicate in the digital, as Ferial described very well. And you have to use those to reach a younger audience because they expect it. It's very logic. It's very simple. The very good news is that if you do that, they will read you and they will pay. They could do as they do with David Maverick and support you with a membership, or subscribe as they do in other sites. That's a more technical side. But it's a myth that younger people are not willing to pay, and it's a myth that they don't trust media. It's good research on this now. It's actually the opposite. So my generation, 55 year plus, is very skeptical to traditional media, but younger people, they respect and trust our brands. It's just that we are not good enough at making quality in the digital. So this we learned. I'm happy to report that our digital subscribers are 15 years younger than our print subscribers on average. And they are along the whole way from 20 and upwards. So no, this is very positive. I'm also happy to report that, you know, Aftenposten still has the largest print newspaper, but by the end of next year, we are digital sustainable, meaning that if we had to, we could turn off the print newspaper and keep the profit. So not only sustaining the newsroom, but sustaining the newsroom and having a profit to reinvest. So in effect, Aftenposten is digital sustainable today. And the very good news is that, of course, we are not gonna cancel the print because it's still has a huge audience and a generation that loves it. So, but it means that you have the freedom. You don't have that angst anymore that it will drag us down. So a few tools that, a few learnings from what we have done that really resonates with a smart young audience. Podcast, for example, done the right way. I can mention two things. We do a daily 15 minutes explanation, analytic explanation program, very formatted. It's free. What happens is that a big chunk of our subscribers are listening to it. It also introduces our brand to a younger audience. That has been very effective. Also, a weekly long show headed by the former political editor, now the editor-in-chief, about politics deep down, also very, very popular with a younger audience. So, you know, people that say that to reach a younger audience, you have to, you know, you have to do this, you have to do very popular light things. They are not able, they don't want quality. It's just not true. But you just have to do it in a way that resonates for them on the platforms they use. And you have to have the same ambition as we always had, to make quality.
Yeah, and they're both podcasts. The political conversation as well, that's a podcast or video, did you say?
That's also a podcast.
Podcast. And you've built a business model around that, advertising supported? I'm presuming it's open, is it?
Yes, for now it's open, and probably Aftenposten will continue, I suppose. I'm not in charge anymore.
No, of course.
So I'm training of not saying we now. I'm not good at it yet, but I suppose it will maintain open. I'll give you the two reasons. First of all, yeah, there is a business model with advertising, by the way. It has proven to be very popular with the right advertisers. So there's a good business there. But even more importantly, subscribers listen to it. So even if it's not technically locked by a wall, they report back to us that they like it. So for them, you know, a subscription is also a support. It's also a membership. We shouldn't be so concerned with the technicality of if it's a membership model or a subscription model. A big chunk of who subscribe will be fans of your brands. So the most important thing we have to do is to give the right services, the right content in the right channels, in the right way. And then the next, it's more of a technical issue, how we get paid for that, in my mind.
Okay, can I just remind all of you who are watching, please do put your questions into the Q&A box. We'll be leaving in about 15 minutes. We'll come to those and we'll spend the last 15 minutes answering any questions that are there. So just drop those in. Ferial, you tell me about Daily Maverick is thinking about launching in print, I've heard. Is there, why? What's the strategy there? What's the thinking behind that?
When the editors and the CEO announced at the beginning of the year, we were like, are you kidding? Have you seen what's happening to print circulations? But it had been a very carefully considered strategy, because actually, as with everywhere in the world, the platforms have taken the biggest chunk of digital advertising.
Yeah.
And careful research showed that for a weekend title in South Africa and across our continent, a lot of the advertising research still resided in that Sunday market, where big brands wanted display ads. Many people said in surveys they still wanted the lean back experience of a weekend title. They felt there was a market for that. So we entered into an agreement with a big retailer. And basically it's almost a print on demand strategy, where your audience tells you where they would like to fetch it. And that ensures that you don't have those massive print costs, because you could almost anticipate size of audience. It's about to launch in 2 weeks' time. And I must say, launching a newspaper in this time has really been a moment that's made people sit up and say, wow. But from our initial look, it seems like there is definitely a market for a high quality read. And that's probably a little bit like the FT weekend, which has really withstood all the storms to still be a successful print product. And then I thought it was interesting that because I'm an FT subscriber, I really enjoyed the letter from the editor, Rula Khalaf, today, where she says that they've actually put on hundreds of thousands of subscriptions. And as Espen was saying, that's been the COVID bump. And I think some of it is going to be quite a sustainable bump, because in a massive disinformation pandemic like we've seen, you really have seen a move back to or towards your traditional media products, away from the others, where there had been so much about hydrochloroquine, all the different narratives that had come to define us in these few months.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about, what are the green shoots that are coming through in Africa? What are you optimistic about? What do you like? What you're seeing?
I suppose, like as with everywhere else, it's been an extinction moment. So almost all of our country's magazines, and we had a rich array of them, have gone to the wall. Independent publishers as well as international titles. And I know that's a global story. Like elsewhere where you saw newsrooms getting smaller, same thing. But on the other hand, you've also seen a lot of startups supported by quite a good seed fund and innovation fund. And I must say, I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing, because it's like your report you've put out, where people are segmenting audiences, defining products for young people, and they actually are building up audience quite quickly. So it's a moment for me of optimism across our continent, rather than the death spiral story that I've come to know through the years.
Yeah, thanks for that. Wolfgang, and actually I'd like to know from Espen as well, but starting with you, Wolfgang, like as we talked about, almost all the digital advertising now goes to the platforms. And so I'm interested to know, how do you think about advertising now? I mean, what's your sort of thinking? What's promising and what's problematic there? And I guess, post-COVID, what do you expect?
When we look back, we see that the advertising revenues dropped from year to year within the last 15 years.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we can change this game. The advertising revenues will go on dropping down, and they will go to the platforms, above all to Google and Facebook. And I think we can't stop this. We just have to be aware that this will go on. And still, 25% of the revenues is still a big amount. I mean, this is not that we can say that's not important for us. But I would say within the next 5 years, we have to. We should be able to live without advertising revenues. It's not. We are not as far as Espen said about Aftenposten that. We are digitally sustainable within 1 year. We need our print edition and we need advertising still. But in the middle run, I'm quite sure that we have to calculate without advertising revenues.
Yeah.
And that means that we have to concentrate on winning digital subscribers. That's what we are doing now. And we have to put together all our efforts to be successful in this direction again.
Yeah, and what kind of advertising are you looking at? Is it mostly programmatic or is it direct relationship, creative?
It depends, because we are in Germany. We are the only local, regional and national newspaper. We are both, and we are the only newspaper in Germany that is both. And with the advertising market is different from where we are a local newspaper. This is Munich and the area around Munich, and of course we have a lot of small businesses, of drugstores and shops. And where we are a national brand, we have the big brands, car companies, and all these brand advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different between our local advertising business and the national one.
Right.
And we still have, for example, in the area around Munich, we still have a real estate market for advertising on the website and in the paper, more than many of the other newspapers.
And Espen, what's the situation up there?
Well, I agree with Wolfgang overall. You know, there are many tomatoes on the market now. So you can, as an advertiser, you can advertise so many places and more. And also you can reach groups. So I think, you know, the world we came from with very high advertising prices, that's gone. However, I think, you know, if Süddeutsche manages to build that subscriber base, now 110,000, it's going to be like, let's say, Wolfgang, it's going to be 300,000 or 400,000 in a few years. You know, that's quite a unique base. And I think advertising is going to be reinvented because the need for marketing is there. You know, there are tons of companies that need to get their message out. That's advertising. You know, they need a way to reach the right audience. But I think advertising will be reinvented and be smarter. It will learn from us. It will be more about to communicate with your audience. Also, advertising will have to go that way. Be more intelligent, be smarter. And then I think Süddeutsche and Daily Maverick will be in a very good position, and they will be able to offer a relationship that you cannot so easily buy everywhere else. So let's see.
So you're quite positive.
Yeah, I'm positive in the sense that we can, you know, I think the ambition to keep 20 to 30% of revenue from advertising, I think it's doable. Going back to 80% from advertising, it's not doable for for a quality paper.
Yeah, and that's really sort of, I guess, selling that advertisers will want to come for the quality and the audience that you bring.
They will come for the audience and your relationship with the audience.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so there's a question here in the box, so I'm going to pop that out now. And this is from Orhan Senna from the Journalism Academy of the Journalists Union of Turkey. Thanks for the session, he says. Not for large-scale inter or national media outlets, but for smaller-scale newsrooms, what would your suggestions for the strategy for a more sustainable revenue stream be? He mentions philanthropy, donations, subscriptions or ads, or a hybrid model. And he says, can you be as detailed as possible? So who wants to take that one?
I suppose because we're from a small place, and first solidarity to our colleagues there. It's been very alarming to see how media freedom has almost died in Turkey. But to your question, colleague, is that for us it certainly has to be a hybrid model. And I think that becoming completely dependent on philanthropy comes with its own set of dangers. And that what has really worked is this mix of a philanthropic membership and an advertising model where you are building this audience that's attractive to advertisers. Even though I have to say, I've been noticing big brands often have newsrooms bigger than the size of ours, for example. That's where all the journalists are going to. But that kind of hybrid model is the one the world and emerging markets would do well to look at. There are important examples in Malaysia, in the Philippines. Rappler, of course, is built on a similar model. And for me, that begins to get you towards a kind of strategy for survival. That means you're not dependent on a big-pocketed philanthropist who make it of the product. Huh?
What Ferial said. In Germany, there is no space, I would say, for philanthropists who endorse newspapers. Maybe this is it's different in Germany, because I would say that media outlets are pressured with problems with freedom of the media. Maybe there are more people who say, okay, we have to help these media outlets and we have to give them money, donations. I don't know whether this is realistic for Turkey, but I would say the hybrid model that Ferial mentioned is also the right one, especially for a local or regional media outlet. But I would say from far away that the chance you have for donations and philanthropists in Turkey should be higher than in Germany, where we are not politically under pressure.
I actually think that, so I agree with both of you, but I think you can do either. I think the key is the decision to work with the audience and ask them to support you, and they could support you with a subscription or with a donation. But the key is actually the decision that you want to be financed by your audience. That's the big thing. Then it's more of a technicality. What model you use, think of it as targeting. So say if you have a paywall that was really hard, then you will target everyone. And if you have a donation model, if you only appeal for donation, actually what you do then, you only target what I call the die-hard fans. So I wouldn't be so concerned about if it's a metered model, if it's a freemium, or if you ask for donations. The key decision is to work with your audience, ask them to pay, and then test out. For example, I think, Ferial, that Daily Maverick, if you decide to go to more of a harder model, you would succeed. it will be just targeting a little bit of an other audience or other part of it. The important learn Maverick is how they work with our audience and really make journalism, communicate with them, and then ask, please help us to support this operation.
Great advice, thank you. So just turning quickly to platforms, I'd love to know from each of you, how do you think about that relationship now? I guess which of the platforms are you, investing in and why? Who would like, Espen, go first?
Sure. So overall, it's becoming a more of a equal position. They are still extremely dominant, but we are gaining some traction. So overall, the relationship between the platforms and the rest of the society. So for sure, government bodies all over the world are working with regulation and so on. So this is on the agenda in a whole different way than it was just 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Who do we invest in? We use Facebook for marketing, for example. Mm-hmm. So I can give you one example. If there are articles, services that works really well on our own site, and it is it seems like there's a group of people that it's popular with, we assume that this could be popular with the same group if we can reach them. So then we will try to use Facebook to reach just that group with that article. So that's one example how we use it, but we are very aware of what we do, and it is marketing. That's what we do.
And do you find like that you can actually, convert them to subscribers, or at least bring them down the funnel?
Absolutely. It's very effective.
Right.
So if you already know that an article resonates with a certain group, and you can, let's say, people working in health, and you can transport that article, put it in front of more people in that group, you will convert more. Yeah. So this is very effective.
Okay. And Ferial, what about Daily Maverick? How important are the platforms for you, and which one?
I'm so happy to tell you that they are not that important to us.
Okay.
And I suppose for me, the bigger thing I do want to bring to the table is, I think it's really incumbent on us as a media community to keep a very close eye and a critical eye when, especially at a time like this, where be it the Google News Initiative or the Facebook funding of news sites, etc., we need to be very careful of that. And I think ask big questions about how that funding happens, who makes the choices, why do they make the choices that they do. And certainly sitting where I am, and you see Google, for example, or Facebook treating media sites almost like charity sites. I think that we need to keep a more watchful eye on this. I remember years ago, it was Wolfgang who first alerted me to attempts to regulate the platforms, and I'd be very keen, Jacqui, to hear your views on what's happening in Australia, because maybe I've been reading too much Sushana Boboff, but I do think surveillance is a real concern. And also what Emily Bell has repeatedly pointed out to us is, look at how this funding is happening, why it's happening, and isn't there a better way of doing it? Because for me, it often feels like merely an extension of the culture of platforms into journalism, which I think the 21st century has taught us is not great for our craft.
Yeah. Okay. We actually have a panel discussion that Emily is part of actually on Thursdays. So join us for that, because I think that will be a fascinating discussion. Wolfgang, I know, like, I really want, like, just quickly to hear from you about how you use the platforms, but can I also give you a question now, because we're 10 minutes away and we have a very hard finish for the next panel. I wanted to throw this question to you at the same time, and this is from Hajime Ozaki, and they're asking what's the retention strategy with the digital subscriptions, and do you anticipate a corona bump, that the corona bump subscribers will remain loyal in the foreseeable future? So tell us quickly about the platform, but then really love to answer that question about how do you retain subscribers, especially all of these new ones?
First, I would underline what Espen said, how we use platforms, and it's very similar to what Espen talked about with Aftenposten. For example, Facebook. We use Facebook to put special articles to a special audience there, to attract people to these articles, and also for paid content. And this works quite good for very specific audiences, not to a broad audience, but very specific audience. And of course, for example, Google, of course, for our traffic on the website, Google is a very important, brings a lot of traffic. But with regard to the subscribers, the digital ones, for example, Google is responsible for less than 1% of our digital subscribers. So it's not important for digital subscribers. It's more important for the traffic.
Okay.
And the loyalty of the readers with a COVID bump or Corona bonus, what I said before. As far as we know, up to now, the readers we won, we have won since March, are loyal, because they can stop the subscription every 4 weeks, and we see, of course, we that's what I said in the very beginning, that the contact between the digital readers and the print ones is much closer. And of course, we ask them, and we see what are they reading, what paid content are they reading, and of course, we try to fulfill the requirements of these digital subscribers. And as far as we see now, they are very loyal. The people who stopped the subscription is less than 3%.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's really good. Ferial, can I ask you, with the membership model, is it? Do you have like the same kind of problems, like that really sort of trying to retain members, particularly given the cost of getting them in the first place?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have an excellent a retention director. Because obviously it's such a big issue. PayPal, credit cards expire, etc., etc. So keeping them on board. But I suppose what I've been trying to do is harvest the lessons of COVID-19 and the COVID bump. And what is it people came to us for? Well, they wanted information, comfort, information about jobs, and often they wanted company in a lockdown.
Yeah.
And I suppose to take them and think, okay, that's what they came for. How do you make them stay? Those are very human needs. What kind of journalism are we going to do to encourage them to stay? And I must say my colleagues have done 50 live journalism or webinars with epidemiologists and people who could just give them, answer those needs, psychologists, etc. And in there, I think there's a real strategy for us to develop. Huh?
Yeah. Okay. And Espen, there's a question here for you. Can you please elaborate on the youth angle of your subscribers or the Aftenposten subscribers? I agree that many young people do want to subscribe and read news, but many, particularly in the global south, can't afford to subscribe to many outlets, particularly if they want to read print. So what are the trends among young people that you all see in terms of subscriptions readership? And this is from the Center for International Media System, Alexei Demjansky.
Okay, thank you, Alexei. A great question. And of course, you're right. And this is not only in Southern Europe that young people can't afford many subscriptions. This will be the same in most markets. But I'll just point to two interesting things in Southern Europe. I'll take the example of Spain. If you look on the attitude towards the quality brands, so El País and so on, in Spain, the most positive people that trust their brands and their journalism are the younger generation. While my generation and older, they are less positive. They are much more positive to television, actually. So this is, something we should investigate and understand. This is Reuters Institute that did this research. The other is that Southern Europe is really late on doing subscription for real. So for example, El País, they launched in May. But even if they launched in May, they already have, I think, close to 50,000 paying subscribers. And as far as I can see from the numbers, the amount of subscribers in Spain has doubled in less than a year. So it's, yes, younger people will have less money to pay for many subscriptions. So be sure you are the one they will subscribe to. Two, it's a pricing issue. Why do we have to have the same price for everyone? So I just don't buy, I'm very positive for the future of digital subscription in Spain, Italy, in Southern Europe. I think they are in for a positive surprise. There's a cultural barrier inside many of the media companies that is not unique to Southern Europe, but it's for sure it's a larger in Southern Europe than in Northern Europe. I'm talking about the newsrooms and the very strong traditions of the newsrooms. But you have seen, companies like El Diario, pure digital, made by young people, close to 60,000 subscribers.
Mm. Okay, well, I think we've just about run out of time. So, yeah, I don't take another question. We've got a couple of minutes to go. So I just want to thank you all. Thanks very much. Thank you, Wolfgang. Thank you, Ferial. Thank you, Espen. It's been a really fascinating conversation, and hopefully we will have contributed somewhat to more evenly distributing the future. And that's really, one of the things, of course, that IPI does as a global network of editors, leading journalists and publishers is come together to share these experiences. So I think I want to really thank you for joining in with us this afternoon to do that. And next up, we have a big interview with the New York Times outgoing CEO, Mark Thompson. And, we've talked a lot about subscriptions this afternoon, and, we've got some great ideas from some success here. But of course, the big successful model has been the New York Times. And Thompson has said that the Times has done it the expensive way, which is by employing more journalists, not less. So that's something that we can listen in on now. And I'd like to introduce Beata Balagova, who will be conducting the conversation with Mark Thompson. And Beata's the editor-in-chief of SME Media, a major independent and daily news site in Slovakia. And prior to joining SME, Beata was the editor-in-chief of Slovakia's English language weekly, the Slovak Spectator. She also serves as the vice chair of the executive board of the International Press Institute, advocating media freedom in the Central European region. So, Beata, we'll hand over to you, and we look forward to the conversation over the next hour. Once again, thank you so much to our digital transition panel.